This is the homework for October 25th, and we were doing these two puzzle pages. All right, the directions here say cross out the letter pair next to each correct answer. For each letter pair that you don't cross out, write the uppercase letter in the box containing the lowercase letter. So when we're talking about slope today, we said that that can be thought of as rise over run. And if we are given a graph, the way that we can figure out slope is to look at the 2 points that we were given and form a triangle on the coordinate plane. When I say that, I mean that we can add an extra dot here and form a right triangle. I do want to pick a point that is directly above one of the points on the line and directly either to the left or the right of the other given point. So my triangle might look like this. All right, once we get to that point, then we can count from one of our points up. See what our rise is, see how far up we have to count to get level with the other point, and then we're going to count our run, which we're thinking of as left and right. It doesn't matter which dot I start with. So first let's see what happens if I start with the lower dot. Well, I need to go 1, 2, 3 units up, and we said up is positive, so we would have a rise of positive 3. Then we need to move 2 to the right. Since we're moving to the right, right is positive, so our run would be 2. Well, we said in class that slope can be thought of as rise over run, so we need to write this as a ratio or a fraction. So 3 over 2. Our rise is 3 and our run was 2, so 3 over 2. Once we know that on number 1 the slope is 3/2, then we can look over to the right hand side of that page and find 3/2. So look on the right hand side and we see 3/2 goes with G and R. So it says in the instructions that we want to scratch that out since we used that. Alright, if we had instead of going from one point up and to the right to get to the other point, what would have happened if we started on the top dot, went left and down? Well, we would have had a negative run because we would have had to go 2 to the left, and we said that if we move to the left, that's a negative, and if we move down, that's a negative. So we would have a run of -3. So instead of 3 over 2, then we would have -3 over -2. Well, we know that a negative divided by a negative is still just a positive, so when we simplify, we would still end up with 3/2. If we then look at another problem such as number 6, number 6 is one of those kind of special cases that we talked about today. We see point A and point B right here. If I count the distance, the run from A to B, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places over. But what's the rise? There's not a rise because I'm just going straight over to the right, so there is no rise. So if we wrote that as a ratio or a fraction, I would write that our rise is 0, so our rise over our run would be 0 over 5. Well, 0 divided by 5 is 0, so I want to find 0 up here at the top and scratch it out. Well, DL is 0, so I want to scratch that out. The directions say once we finished all of those problems on that section, then I want to go down to the bottom, and whichever letter choices were still remaining, I want to write the capital letter that corresponded with each lowercase letter that is listed down there at the bottom. The next section down, it said in exercises 7 through 18, find the slope of the line that passes through the given 2 points. So if we are looking for the slope of a line that passes through 2 given points, we said in class that we can use the slope formula for that. The slope formula was m equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. We said it doesn't really matter which ones we think of as the 1s and the 2s as long as we're consistent. So I'm going to call this first x value x1 and the first y value y1, and I'm going to think of the second x value as x2 and the second y value as y2. So once we've established those, now we just need to substitute these values in for each of our variables. So instead of y sub 2 minus y sub 1, we're going to have 3 minus 1. And instead of 8 minus 5, or sorry, instead of x sub 2 minus 8 x sub 1, we're going to do 8 minus 5. Well, if we simplify the top of that fraction, we get 2. If we simplify the bottom of that fraction, we get 3. So the slope of the line that passes through those 2 points is 2/3. So if we look over to the right-hand side and find 2/3, then we'll scratch that out. So 2/3 would be right here, so we would scratch that out. And then we'll do one more example. If we look at number, let's see. Well, let's just look at number 12. On number 12, if we use that same slope formula, y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1, then let's see what happens. We have x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. So in our slope formula, we would do negative 4 minus 4 on top, and we're going to do negative 6 minus negative 9 on bottom. One of the warnings that I gave you in class today was to just be careful with the minuses and the negatives. A lot of people, instead of like on the bottom, instead of just doing negative 6 minus negative 9, a lot of people are tempted to just leave one of those out and do negative 6 minus 9. So be sure that you include the minus negative 9. Well, when we simplify the top of this fraction, we end up with negative 8. When we simplify the bottom of the fraction, negative 6 minus negative 9, well, that's just like negative 6 plus 9, which would be 3. So negative 8 over 3. Well, we said today that if either our numerator or our denominator has a negative in it, let's just bring the negative out in front. So instead of negative 8 over 3, I want to bring the negative out in front and do negative 8/3 like this. The reason that we said we want to do that is, what if somebody else used the first one as the 2's and the second set of ordered pairs as the 1's? Well, then they would have ended up with 8 over negative 3. 8 over negative 3, and I had negative 8 over 3. If we bring the negative out in front, then we both get the same answer. So negative 8/3, let's find our answer over here. So negative 8/3 is located right here, so I would just scratch that out. Again, anything that's remaining I want to transfer down to the boxes down at the bottom of that page. The second section of the homework looked like this, and the directions here, well, let's find those first. The directions said write each equation below in slope-intercept form, then find the slope and y-intercept at the bottom of the page. Write the letter of the exercise above them. Alright, so we said first of all we want to write this in slope-intercept form. Well, slope-intercept form is in the form y equals mx plus b. So basically we want to solve the equation for y. So on the first one, we need to subtract 2x from the left and subtract 2x from the right. The 2x's give us 0. So we're left with 5y equals 10 minus 2x, but since I want to put the term with the x in it at the front of the equation, then I'm going to write that as negative 2x plus 10. And then finally we need to divide the left by 5 and divide each term on the right hand side by 5. And when we've done that, the 5's are going to give us 1, so what we end up with is y equals negative 2/5 x plus 2 when we divide the 10 by the 5. Again, we did bring the coefficient out in front. Instead of negative 2x over 5, we wrote that as negative 2/5 x plus 2. So we said that the slope of an equation that is written in slope-intercept form is going to be the number that comes in front of the x, so this, and the y-intercept is the number that comes at the back, so the 2. So let's find that at the bottom of the page. So we had a slope of negative 2/5 and a y-intercept of 2. So that would be located right here. All right, so I hope this helps y'all.